I don't know if anyone has any questions, bearing in mind, of course, that these are all ongoing criminal investigations, and all of us, for various reasons, are pretty limited in what further we can discuss other than what we have already and what's contained in the press release. With that in mind, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I got a number of calls yesterday from some constituents very grateful for the operation. They were delighted.
Great.
And I'm glad that Chief Morrissey and the mayor brought out that a lot of the residents in the area are part of this whole thing. They were the ones who informed KDOG about these houses and provided a lot of information. So along with the police and the sheriff's department and DEA and FBI, I'd like to say that the neighbors, the law-abiding neighbors, should also be given some credit for coming forth. I do have two questions. Number one, do you have a list of the addresses where these busts took place, number one? And number two, and this is more for Chief Morrissey perhaps than anybody else, are any of these places potentially available for nuisance property foreclosure? Or is there any possibility of that from any of these? Because I got this question a number of times too. Thank you.
As to the question whether there's a list of these properties available, there's not. Going forward, that might be the sort of thing that comes out in court proceedings, but as of right now, that's not a matter of public record. I just want to kind of briefly on your comment about citizens' role in providing information to law enforcement. That's obviously an extremely important source of information in this case and in others. And as always, again, this is an ongoing open investigation, so we'd encourage citizens that have information about this or any other drug trafficking or other offenses to report those matters to the appropriate law enforcement officials.
Just simply on your question, I think it goes along with the U.S. Attorney's answer. Those will be looked at, but this is an ongoing investigation, and they certainly could fall under that, but at this point, I can't say that they will, but that's certainly something we're looking into.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to reiterate everything that every one of the board members had stated, from the city administration, police chief, KDOG, all the way on to the district attorney's office, along with the FBI. Since 2010, in my district, I'm a representative of the 7th district within Kenosha, receive a lot of complaints. Some of them were citizen-generated, actually, who were homeowners within the area. Large percentage of them were, I want to say, tenant-generated for fear. So we'd have to take it upon ourselves as an elected official to be the complainant. And what I like is that I was told, have patience. And this is what the people need to understand. For 5 years, actually longer than that, I want to say probably for almost about 7 years, been turning in complaints. Had a high percentage of the rental units. You're dealing in a district that's 72% owner occupied. Had a high percentage of drug houses with drug activity. I was told, patience, patience, it does pay off. So I just want to go on the record to say that when law enforcement tells you patience, they're working at it. And I want to commend everybody that's sitting up there today. I want to commend the FBI for what culminated today with the investigation that was going on, since 2010. Thank you.
Of the 23rd floors, how many were executed in the city of Kenosha?
10 yesterday, I'm not sure part.
Yeah, at least half of them were actually in the city of Kenosha.
Okay, but it sounds like it's stretched north of Milwaukee, or no?
No, I would say it was confined more closely to the Kenosha area. It didn't stretch that far north.
Somewhere in Racine?
Yes.
And of the 20 facing state charges, how many of those are in custody right now?
4 are in custody right now.
Back to this housing thing, I've tried myself, when these houses do come available, it's probably for Mayor Buzz, I notice a lot of times I go down and try to look at a house and find if it's foreclosed or this, the information, it's really hard to get the information to go ahead and bid on a house or whatever. And it seems like sometimes it's readily available. These realtors, local realtors are grabbing them before the community's able to even have a chance at that. Is there a way to get that up to the people in the community if these houses ever come available to start actually doing something in them and curb appealing these houses and getting the community up as far as lawns and all that stuff and making a difference in the house? Because they have programs now actually in Milwaukee that they're getting a lot of the houses that are vacant through the banks. If people are going to live there and actually start investing in the house, their homes. Just to think, you know, it's hard to get me as a citizen here to get my eyeball on some of these houses because a lot of the realtors are grabbing them before people are able to.
If in fact some of these might become under the control of the city, then our Department of City Development would be able to answer those questions for you.
Just going back to the investigation, so there's a total of 15 people that are still not in custody, total.
I know that there are 7 federal defendants not in custody, and I guess that's the way the math works out.
So 15. And are any of these people, you said this gang, the Gangster Discipleship Gang, are they out of Kenosha? Where are they out of? And are they connected at all to the Wild 100s?
This particular group has been operating in the Kenosha and Racine County areas. And
They're not linked to the Wild 100s.
do you want to?
No, they're not linked to the Wild 100s. I was talking broadly reference to gang enforcement. That when the FBI currently is targeting on multiple different fronts, we're looking at different gangs in Kenosha, Racine, and Milwaukee counties right now, from the Wild 100s in Milwaukee down to the firm down here.
When did this investigation begin? How far back was this date?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to answer because it's not as though on a particular date we just decide to open an investigation. It's a more gradual matter than that. But it began as a state and local investigation. I don't know if you've got any specifics on September of last year. September of last year, you'd say?
Is there any belief that this gang maybe had a particular stranglehold on the drug trade in the Kenosha Racine area, or are they just one collectively? I don't know.
Do you have any?
I don't.
I'm not really sure what kind of stranglehold, if any, they had on
Well,
the
what
area.
percent of the business they have?
You know, beyond the quantities that we've charged in the indictment and that we've discussed, you know, it may be that as these cases go forward in court, we're able to explain a little bit more what their role was within the community, what types of overall quantities were involved. But it's not something we can describe right now.
I know you're not releasing the addresses. Is there any photographs of the drugs or weapons available?
Photographs.
I don't know, you've got a lot of
That-
but not hopeful.
Yeah, no, we don't have that available.
This might be for Sheriff Beth or Chief Morrissey. Can you put a scale on the magnitude of this operation? Maybe looking back historically, can you think of a bust of this size?
Well, I don't know if this kind of goes back to what Dave was bringing up. This is probably the biggest court. This is the depth.
Dave, can you get up?
Oh, all right. This is the largest coordinated effort in Kenosha County history. And there have been larger quantities of drugs found at a single time. But as far as having all these agencies, all this manpower, the length of the investigations that went on, the rounding up of this many suspects, I guess, this is it. This is the biggest one we've had. And to have the 15 different agencies, KDOG has been in operation for years, and they've been doing an outstanding job, and they've seized, hundreds of thousands of dollars, several pounds of drugs, hundreds of pounds of marijuana. But to actually come in and take, from what I've been told, there's about 3 different levels in the organization that have been taken down with this sweep that's occurred yesterday. And the sheer manpower that all these different agencies, I had several phone calls of people that I know, and they were on their way to work, and they said, we've seen your cars, the city cars, the mobile command unit out there, we've seen the armored car. What's going on? Of course, yesterday, just playing dumb, I said, I don't know what you're talking about. But to have this coordinated effort by the federal, state, all these different agencies, this is huge. And what percentage is this a stranglehold? Is this going to take out, the big players in Kenosha? Don't have that answer. Is it going to take out some of the big players? Yes. But we all know that when you take somebody out, somebody else steps into the game. And will we have to do this again? Yes, we will. And do we look forward to doing it again? If they're going to keep coming, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep going after them. And I don't remember exactly who it was, but they said, if you're going to bring it to Kenosha, we're going to keep going after you. And I remember a couple of years ago, Chief Morrissey he asked for a coordinated effort, not quite this large, but to be in the Frank neighborhood in an area of the city. And one person came up to me when he saw the chief and I doing a press conference, and we talked about how, and I give him so much credit for taking this head on and saying, we're going to take back this part of the city. And this one person says, you're going to chase people out of the city of Kenosha. And I could tell that he was one of the people that we were going to chase out. And he said, that's exactly what we're intending to do. So, I hope I answered your question.
Have any of the people in the indictments been tied to violence by an act? And out of those people, out of the 40-plus people, are they all tied to the trafficking, selling side?
The 44 people are all tied to the conspiracy. The conspiracy was to distribute these controlled substances. As for ties to violence, again, that's not alleged in the indictment. It may be that some of those sorts of things come to light in court proceedings going forward. But for right now, that's not what is alleged to have happened. Yes.
Thank you. As a Kenosha alderman, it'd be interesting to see those answers when they do come out. But even when we do see that list, can we expect there might be some more arrests in the wake of this based on what you've learned from this operation? Or perhaps this is not a position of making this yet?
Well, that's exactly right. We're not in a position to discuss that yet, but as these things work, typically, as the investigation goes forward, more and more information comes in from the community, from other people who know of these individuals, and sometimes from some of the defendants themselves. And it may be, and often is in other cases, that that sort of information leads to the execution of additional search warrants at additional addresses and additional charges against not only these defendants, but also newer defendants. Yes?
Thank you. I'm curious, where is the supply of drugs primarily coming from? And the second part is, how far back can you trace that supply line?
Most of the drugs that come into Wisconsin are coming from Chicago. Chicago is the major transshipment point for the Mexican cartels in all of America. The Mexican cartels control the wholesale market of all drugs across America. In this case, going back, I know talking with my investigators, my guys, DEA were involved, it traces back 36 months plus, so it's been a long time coming.
Thank you. Okay, well, again, thank all of you for coming. I appreciate it. One last question.
My name is Charles Powell, Chuck Powell, and I'm a local landlord in town. Unfortunately, you guys listened to my properties yesterday. I could ask you guys questions all day long, but I don't remember. I appreciate what you guys do. Let me tell you that right away. I would let other constituents or residents of the city know that one of the most effective things, especially if it's a rental property, bug the landlord about it, and let them know that, you think there's drugs. Because the landlord has a lot more power than people think. So I just want to let you know, and I don't know if this is a highly tenant situation that you guys encounter versus homeowners, but just to throw that out there. I mean, you make a call and start bugging somebody about it and letting you know your suspicions. You might get faster, because I'm very impatient. I don't have time to wait years for you guys to come in, but I want it done yesterday, and I will work at it to make it happen. Well, one of my questions is okay, they broke a couple doors down. I believe it was a guest of one of our tenants. I asked the officers earlier before the meeting started, is there an opportunity to get like a 5-day notice for whatever you guys charge, drug abuse, drug dealing, to help expedite eviction if we need to do so? Is that something you can provide for us?
I can just speak in general terms. If it's a rental property, there is a statute that allows me to send a letter to the landlord through my office indicating that your tenant may be involved in drug or gang activity, and you can take that to court and use it under a certain statute to allow you eviction where you may not have grounds otherwise. So those frequently come out of my office.
All right, well, thanks again, and I appreciate your being here this afternoon.